Alright guys, I am back again with another deck profile from Cardfight Vanguard Deer Days on Nintendo Switch. This time we're doing version 1 of my Dragon Empire Overlord deck. So as usual, version 1, everything through the first additional card pass, so through D-Booster Set 7. And this deck is another one of the encounter decks based on retrained versions of units from the older Vanguard series. This one being built around the Kagero units of Dragonic Overlord and his cross-ride Dragonic Overlord the End, which were the avatar units of Toshiki Kai in the original anime series. So as usual, we will be going through the deck and then we'll show it in one card fight to see it in action. So starting off first with our ride deck, we do have our grade 0 starter, which is Lizard Runner Undu. So when this thing is rode upon, if you win second, draw a card. Standard D-Series starter skill. And the first of our Kagero encounter cards. So next for our grade 1, we have Embodiment of Armor Bar. So his auto ability, when this unit is rode upon by Dragon Knight Nehalem, you can counterblast 1, search your deck for up to one grade 1 card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle your deck. So this is a pretty good skill. When you ride over it, you can search out any grade 1 from your deck that you want. So you can get a Perfect Guard into your hand, you can get Halby into your hand, which is a very vital card in this deck. You can search out Gojo, which I do quite a bit since I'm actually only running one copy of that card. So any grade 1 you need at the moment, you can search it out off of this card. And then he also has a second auto ability that is active on Rearguard Circle that says once per turn, when your Vanguard's attack hits, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So this skill is pretty much never used because he never ends up on Rearguard Circle, and of course we aren't running any extra copies of him in the main deck either. So the second skill isn't really relevant. So next for our grade 2, we have Dragon Knight Nehalem. So his auto ability, when this unit is rode upon by a unit with Overlord in its card name, call this card to Rearguard Circle. So he just calls himself out of your soul when you ride over top of him, which lets you go ahead and use his second ability, which is an Activate skill that's active on Rearguard Circle. That says once per turn, if you have a Vanguard with Overlord in its card name, you can Soul Blast 1, and this unit and all of your Vanguards get power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So for just one Soul Blast, you can power up both him and your Vanguard, which your Vanguard's going to be restanding most of the time, so he basically powers up 3 of your attacks per turn. And actually nothing else in this deck uses Soul at all, so he's not competing for resources with anything. So overall, just a pretty helpful card in boosting your offense. And then lastly, we have our grade 3, which is Dragonic Overlord. So he has a continuous ability that's active on both Vanguard Circle and Rearguard Circle. That says, during the battle this unit attacked at Rearguard, your opponent cannot call cards from their hand to Guardian Circle. And then he also has an auto ability when he's on Vanguard Circle that says once per turn, when this unit's attack hits, counterblast 1 and discard a card from your hand to stand this unit, and it gets drive -1 until end of turn. So he can restand himself. Now he does have to hit in order to do that. So the idea is to use the guard restrict granted by his first ability to attack into a rear guard first and hit the rear guard, and then restand off of his skill and then attack into the Vanguard the second time. That guard restrict from the continuous ability does block them from normal calling stuff from their hand to guard with. Now they can still guard with intercepts and or blitz orders, although most of the time they're not going to use up, all those resources just to block a rear guard. So that's the main idea here, is to pick off their rear guard first in order to almost guarantee the restand and then attack into their Vanguard the second time. So overall, a pretty good card, although it ends up not being the main Vanguard of the deck. Because, moving right along to the main deck, first off our grade 3s, we have 4 copies of our actual boss unit for this deck, the Cross-Ride Dragonic Overlord the End. So he has a continuous ability that says during your turn, if your soul has a Dragonic Overlord, this unit's drive cannot decrease from card effects, and it gets power plus 5,000. And then he also has his auto ability that says once per turn, at the end of the battle that this unit attacked, you can counterblast 1 and discard 2 cards from your hand to stand this unit, and it gets drive -1 until end of turn. So this card is basically just a powered up version of Dragonic Overlord skill. He no longer has to hit in order to get the restand, which is probably the main benefit here. As well as not losing any drive on that restand as long as you have the original Overlord in your soul, which you pretty much always should, since you'll be writing it from your ride deck and then writing this from your hand on top of it. So being able to attack twice with Twin Drive both times can make this card very dangerous. You do have to discard 2 cards for his cost instead of 1, although we have another card in the deck that can help mitigate that cost. So overall, this is a very, very powerful card and an excellent boss unit for the deck. So the only other grade 3 I am running is 2 additional copies of the original Dragonic Overlord, which are pretty much just here to be a backup. If you somehow don't draw into the end, you can just Persona Ride into this, which is better than nothing. But most of the time you will be able to get the end since we do have ways to dig for him. So this card is mainly here just to be a backup. If you don't need to ride into it for any reason, which is going to be the case most of the time, you can just use it as discard fodder, or his skill is active on rearguard circle, so if you want to call him to rearguard and have him have guard restrict when he attacks into another rearguard, you do have that option too. So that is all of our grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we have 4 copies of our next encounter card, Burning Horn Dragon. So his auto ability, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, you can counterblast 1 to look at the top 7 cards of your deck. Reveal up to 1 card with Overlord in its card name and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. And if you did not reveal a card, you can countercharge 1. So this ability lets you dig through your deck to search out to your Overlords. And if you whiff on the skill and don't find an Overlord in the top 7, it actually refunds its own cost, which is really nice. That's a clause that a lot of other cards I wish had, that have those, check the top whatever skills to search for whatever. I wish a lot of those had that refund clause in their skills as well, because that's really helpful in helping you avoid wasting your resources. But then additionally, he has another auto ability that says when your Vanguard with Overlord in this card name attacks, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So again, most turns your Vanguard with Overlord in its name should be attacking twice, so this skill should trigger twice per turn, meaning that Burning Horn should be attacking for a base of 20k every turn, so he can be a very good offensive card as well. So next we have 2 copies of another encounter card, Berserk Dragon. So his auto ability says when this unit attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Overlord in its card name, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of that battle, and then you can counterblast 1 to choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less rearguards and retire it. So this card powers itself up for free and then gives you the option of retiring one of their rearguards with the cost of a counterblast 1. So if you have the counterblast to spare, that is a control option that can be pretty helpful. But even if you don't want to use up any resources on it, you get the power boost for free. So overall, pretty decent card. So next we have 3 copies of Blast Artillery Dragon Brachio Force. So his auto ability, when this unit's attack hits, you can retire this unit to draw a card, choose one of your opponent's rearguards, and retire it. So this card is another control option. It does have to hit in order to use its skill. However, if you really want to pick apart your opponent's board, which you can do, since it doesn't have to hit a Vanguard, it can just hit anything, you can attack into one of their rearguards with this, and they'll be less likely to guard it. So if they let that attack through, then that rearguard will be retired, and then you can use his skill to draw and pick off another one of their rearguards as well. So, very helpful in picking apart their board and just cycling through your deck. So, lastly for our grade 2s, I just have one copy of the Blitz Order Burn Bright Pure Prayers. So, if your damage zone has 3 or more cards, you can choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 15,000 until the end of that battle. So, this card is basically just an extra 15k shield. Very easy condition to meet, just needing 3 or more damage. I mainly just ran this card because I really like the artwork, and unlike with most decks I build, I actually had plenty of space in this deck to play around with. So I thought, why not stick in this card? So yeah, it's not necessary by any means. I'm mostly just running it for the very nice artwork. So that is all of our grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we have one copy of our last encounter card, Dragon Monk Gojo. So his auto ability, when the Vanguards attack this unit boosted hits, you can retire this unit and countercharge 1. So he is the only countercharger we have in the deck, which is nice since we do have quite a few counterblasting skills. However, he is kind of limited in his usefulness. He has to boost a Vanguard's attack, and that attack has to hit. So he's only useful in that back row center circle, which is mainly why I'm only running the one copy of him. You can search him out off of bar skill if you want, which most of the time what I end up doing with this card is using it on turn 3 to boost the original Dragonic Overlord's rearguard attack. So when it hits, you can retire him and countercharge 1, and then counterblast that same card to pay the cost for Overlord skill to restand him. So this card can basically just help you remove the counterblast cost for Dragonic Overlord for that one turn. So it can help stretch your resources a little bit. So next up, we're running 4 copies of Drag Ritter Halby. So his continuous ability, when this card would be discarded from hand for the cost of the ability of your Vanguard with Overlord in its card name, it may be regarded as discarding 2 cards. And then he also has his auto ability that says, when this card is discarded from hand for the cost of the ability of your Vanguard with Overlord in its card name, you may call this card to a back row rearguard circle, and if you call, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So this card can not only cover the entire discard cost for the end skill, he can also revive himself from the drop and call himself to a back row rearguard circle, which if you have an open circle in your back row, that effectively removes the discard cost entirely for the end skill. And when you combine that with the fact that he won't be losing any drive checks, that can basically turn the end skill into a counterblast 1 for Vanguard restand and a +2 to your hand overall. So overall, this is a very, very good card. Extremely vital to this deck. You definitely want to max it out at 4, because this is the card you want to be discarding pretty much every turn for the end skill. So next up, we have 3 copies of Drag Ritter Midhat. I guess is how you say that. Anyway, he's got auto ability that says, when your unit stands by your card's ability, you can retire this unit and draw a card. So what I like doing with this card is, if you put it behind your Vanguard when you attack with the end, you can use the end skill to discard Halby and restand your Vanguard, which will trigger this card's ability so you can retire him and draw a card, and then resolve Halby's skill to superior call him to that back row center circle that this card was on. So then you can have both your Vanguard attacks be boosted without losing any card advantage. So that's a pretty simple combo you can pull off with this card, but it is pretty helpful. So next we have 2 copies of Stealth Dragon Fushimachi Madoka. So he's got a continuous ability that's active on Rearguard Circle or Guardian Circle. That says, if your opponent's drop has 4 or more cards, this unit gets power plus 2,000, shield plus 5,000. Then, if it has 8 or more cards, this unit gets an additional shield plus 5,000. So this card can be up to a 10k rearguard or up to a 15k shield. So I usually don't call this the rearguard unless I absolutely have to. You get much more mileage out of it having it be a 15k shield. So yeah, this is mainly here just to be another defensive option for the deck. So our only other grade 1s are of course our Sentinels. So first we have 3 copies of Twin Buckler Dragon, which is just your standard Perviguard. And then of course we have 1 copy of our Blitz Order Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can play without paying the cost if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive. So that is all of our grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s, we of course just have our trigger lineup, which is 7 crit, 4 draw, 4 heal, and 1 over. So starting first with the crit triggers, we have 4 copies of Burning Flail Dragon. So this is the crit with a skill. At the end of the battle, this unit boosted, you can put into your soul, choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 2000 until end of turn. I don't think I've ever used the skill once in this deck. You don't really need the extra soul for anything, and you don't have the chance of like accidentally superior calling this or something. So the effect crits isn't really necessary, but hey, he's a flame dragon, so he fits in aesthetically very nice. So additionally, we have 3 copies of Blaze War Monk Sogyo, so just your vanilla crit. Next up for our draws, we have 4 copies of Flare Veil Dragon, which is the draw with a skill. If your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, get shield plus 5000. So of course you're a 10k shield draw trigger. And then for our heals, we have 4 copies of White Light Dragon Parasolus. So this is just a vanilla heal. As always, if you want to run the effect ones, you can. I just always stick with the vanillas for consistency's sake. And then lastly, we have our over trigger, which is Dragon Deity King of Resurgence, Drag Veda. So his additional effect, choose one of your Vanguards and stand it. So this card is obviously very good, being able to restand your Vanguard. And in this deck, since the end can restand on its own, you can combine this card with that skill and actually end up getting 3 Vanguard attacks in one turn. So overall, very, very dangerous card. So that is the deck. So we will go ahead and have our one fight with it. And let's see, we will fight... Yeah, we'll face Ren. And we will be going first.
Stand up, the Vanguard. My turn, draw.
Alright, so let's discard this draw trigger to ride bar. And then we just end our turn.
Stand and draw. Nine, skill発動. Call. Vanguardにアタック.
And we are going to lick that through.
Drive check.
We need the damage anyway for bar skill next turn.
Damage check. Turn. My turn. Draw.
Alright, let's discard that Overlord, I guess.
Light.
To ride Nehalem. So then we can use bar skill and search out any grade 1 from our deck. So we'll search Gojo, put him into our hand, and anything I call will just get retired by Blast or Dark next turn. So I think I am just going to attack with Nehalem.
No guard. Check the drive trigger. ダメージチェック。ターンエンド。僕のターンはドロー。すべてを闇に包み込む我が分身。スキル発動。スペリオルコー。我が闇は光を塗りつぶす。アビリティブラスト。グリーディネスシャドウ。
Now, I don't have any rear guards for him to retire, but he will get an extra drive check from Blaster Dark skill.
Vanguard にアタック。
And let's see, we'll let that one through. We get a heal trigger, nice. And we do get it since we're both at 1.
Vanguard にアタック。
And now he needs a trigger for that to even hit, but he does have Twin Drive. But I'm gonna let it through anyway.
ドライブチェック。ドロートリ。
And it gets the draw trigger, so it will hit.
ドライブチェック。
Which is fine.
さあ、もっと楽しませてください。ダメージチェック。ゲット。
Oh, we got a draw trigger too. Nice. So now his rear guard won't be able to hit us. Alright, so let's drop one of these burning horns, I guess. To ride Dragonic Overlord. And we can use Nehalem's skill to superior call him from the soul. So then we'll go ahead and call Burning Horn Dragon from our hand. Use his skill to counterblast. And we can check the top 7 for an Overlord, which we did find the end. So we'll add him to our hand. And let's see, we'll go ahead and call Gojo to our back row center. And then we'll use Nehalem's skill to Soul Blast to power up both himself and Dragonic Overlord. And I think we are good with that, so we will go ahead and attack with our Vanguard first. Now we want to target his rear guard, so we'll attack into Blaster Dark, which will trigger Burning Horn skill to gain an additional 5k.
Check the drive trigger. Check the drive trigger.
So we'll resolve Gojo's skill first. So we'll retire him and countercharge. And then we can resolve Overlord skill to counterblast and discard 1 from our hand. So we've got the end, so we'll drop this Overlord. To restand our Vanguard. And now we can attack again into his Vanguard this time, which again will trigger Burning Horn skill to gain 5k again. And we get a heal trigger, which we also get. So we'll heal that face down damage and give that power to Nehalem. It gets a crit trigger. So we will attack with Burning Horn. And he intercepts. So then we'll attack with Nehalem.
ノーガー
Let's that
ド
one
ダメー
through.
ジチェッククリティカルトリ
It gets another crit trigger, but that one's wasted.
パワープラスターンエンドスタンドアンドドローライド・ザ・ヴァンガードスキル発動スペリオルコー終わりにしましょう
So now he's gonna get to take out our rear guards, as well as give his Vanguard an extra 10k and a crit.
クリティカルプラス
I don't know who made the CPU deck list for Ren. He's running PBO and the main in his deck, but he's got PBD in his ride deck.
ヴァンガードにアタック
It's not exactly optimal, but whatever. So let's see. We will guard that with one of these Berserk Dragons.
ガードヴァンガードにアタック
And that is 2 crits, but we're only at 1 damage, so I think I'm actually going to let that through.
ノーガードドライブチェックドライブチェック見せて新たなイメージダメージチェックゲットヒールトリガー
And I get another heal trigger, which we don't get this time, but we get the power, so that'll shut down his last rear guard attack.
ゲットクリティカルトリガー
And then we get a crit trigger on top of it, but it's pretty much
クリティ
wasted.
カルプラスパワープラスターンエンドマイターンドロー
Alright, so now we can cross ride
さらなる高みへ俺は行くライド
into Dragonic Overlord the End. So then we'll go ahead and call Burning Horn again from our hand
コール
and use his skill once again
スキル発動
to check the top 7, and once again we find the end, so he moves to our hand. So that'll set up our Persona ride for next turn. So we'll call Berserk Dragon,
コール
and I think we are good. So we will attack with our Vanguard first.
ヴァンガードにアタックだスキル
Once
発
again,
動
we'll
だ
power up Burning Horn.
パワープラスノーガードチェックザドライブトリガーチェックザドライブトリガーさあフィナーレだダメージチェッククリティカルトリガー
It gets a crit trigger.
パワープラス
Alright, so now we can use the end skill to counterblast and discard. So we'll discard Halby, and he will count as 2.
来たれこれが終焉の始まりだエターナルアポカリプス
So now we'll restand the end
スキル
and
発
use
動だ
Halby's skill to revive him back to our rear guard circle. So let's see. All these attacks are going to need some triggers to hit anything. So I am actually going to put this behind Burning
ス
Horn.
ペリオルコールパワープラス
So then we can attack once again with the
ヴァン
end
ガードにアタック
and trigger Burning Horn skill again.
パワープラス
So this needs a trigger to even hit, but yeah, I figured to guard some more on top of that.
チェックザドライブトリガーゲットクリティカルトリガー
And there is the crit trigger, but this is 2 to pass. So let's see, we will give that critical to Burning Horn and then the power to Berserk Dragon.
クリティカルプラス パワープラスチェックザドライブトリガーゲット
Oh, and then we got another crit trigger. Okay. So, let's see. We will give... Yeah, we'll give both those effects to Berserk Dragon. So now I have to block both these attacks. Which he might not be able to do because he only got 4 cards in his hand. So we will attack with Berserk Dragon, which will trigger his skill to gain an additional 5k. And we will go ahead and counterblast and take out one of his rear guards. Oh, he's got a perfect guard. So then we can attack with Burning Horn for 33,002 crit. Oh, and he's got to let it through. So we might have him here. Oh, he gets a heal, which he does get. So yeah, he's going to survive. And he gets a crit that's wasted. But he did survive that thanks to a miracle heal. But he dropped his PBO for that perfect guard. Yep, he's got another one. Okay. Wasn't sure if he was going to get his cross right there. Alright, let's see. I just need 5 to block that. But his Vanguard's going to be 2 crit. You know what? I think I'll let that one through. We get another heal trigger, which we don't get, but we do get the power. And now he's going to attack into Berserk Dragon, which I think I'm actually going to guard because I don't have much else in my hand to call. So we'll guard that with that draw.
Vanguard にアタック終わりにしましょう。スペリオルコパワープラスパワープラス
So let's see, we can, if we guard this with 1 trigger, that'll be 2 to pass, so we'll do that. And that'll hopefully be enough as long as he doesn't pull an over trigger or something. Alright, he got no triggers. Nice. And I could block that, but I think I'm just going to let that one through, actually. Alright, so now we can Persona Ride. And we drew our over trigger. Alright, so I think that is actually all we need to do. So I am going to go ahead and attack with the End first, which again will power up Burning Horn. And he guards for 1 to pass. Oh, and it worked. But I think he's not going to be able to survive much else. So we'll use the End skill to counterblast and discard Halby again. So once again we can revive Halby, and we will put him behind our Vanguard. So then we can attack once again with Dragonic Overlord the End. And power up Burning Horn, of course. And he's gotta let it through. And he gets a crit, but that does not help him, so we got him with that. Alright, so there you go. That was our Overlord deck. Very fun deck, definitely reminiscent of the older versions of Dragonic Overlord from the previous Vanguard series. So I will be back soon with more deck profiles, but until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.